and sunshine at O'Hare. Next news coming up at 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by HealthQuest Radio with Dr. David Kobaba. Every Saturday morning at 11, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. The biggest comeback since Lazarus? No, I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I'm talking about Bibi Netanyahu. How about Bibi winning yet another election, the biggest of his career, because it sustains it. Now the question still remains whether or not he can put together a governing coalition. There's also a question that remains about his pending trial on corruption charges. And to help us answer all of those questions, I can't think of anybody better. We're pleased to be joined by our friend Michael Medved, host of The Michael Medved Show, member of USA Today's Board of Contributors, and author of God's Hand on America, Divine Providence in the Modern Era. Michael, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
You bet, Dan. Great to speak to you. And the only thing more complicated than Super Tuesday was Super Monday in Israel.
Yes.
It was the most recent election where it's almost like Groundhog Day, because if you go back to April of last year, which was the first of the three elections that they've had, the results were almost identical to what Bibi did this time. And the difficulty is, on St. Patrick's Day, he's supposed to start his trial on bribery, corruption, and breach of trust. And it's not like an impeachment trial. This is a criminal trial. And right now, he won very clearly. He got more votes than his leading opponent. But if you count the Arab list, which is 15 seats in the parliament, there are probably enough votes. They're going to be debating soon, maybe even starting today, a resolution to pass a new law barring Bibi from serving while he's undergoing trial. And because of the Arab votes, 15 of them in Parliament, they may have enough to actually pass that law and to prevent Bibi from taking office or keeping office.
And what he really wanted to accomplish was to have enough colleagues get elected so that he could enact the so-called French law, right, which would prevent a sitting prime minister from facing trial.
Correct. And this is unbelievably controversial, and it's not clear that he would have the votes to do that. The most recent returns, and this is like within the hour, is that the right-wing coalition, which is Bibi's Likud party, the traditional conservative party, and a smaller conservative party called Yamina, which means the right, which is full of charismatic younger conservatives, and the religious parties, and there are two major religious parties. That coalition ends up with 58 seats. Now, you need 61 seats to form a government. The other side isn't even close. The other side has like 12 seats less. But the problem here is now the latest thing. I can't believe it. The news keeps breaking. There is an accusation that there is a younger left-wing member of parliament who is going to be returning, who may be blackmailed about some hidden tape in which she describes Benny Gantz, who's the leader of the center-left, as a dumb loser. And unless she goes over to Netanyahu, they're going to reveal this tape, which is supposed to ruin her career. You hear about this member of parliament who has a secret tape that's about to be exposed. You think, oh, it's going to be something low, dirty.
Anthony Weiner-like, yeah, right.
No, this is basically just saying that Benny Gantz, the former Army Chief of Staff, who's the leader of the center-left, is a dumb loser, and there are a lot of people on the center-left who feel that way right now.
Well, has Bibi's challenger, has he delivered a concession speech yet, or is he still holding out?
They don't do that.
Oh, they don't?
No.
Because
It's never over.
you know the reason they don't do that is because the politics is never over, and they may now. Nobody wants this, except maybe the public. Maybe they go a fourth time, and they've had 3 elections within a year, and they could do a fourth. This election, what was most surprising to everybody was it was like record high turnouts. They had 71% turnout. And people, theoretically, everybody was saying that, the Israeli public is bored and they're tired and they're frustrated. Well, they poured out to the polls. We should have such a good turnout. And I know that's the Bernie Sanders theory here, is that some kind of magical turnout, invisible armies are going to save him.
Well, maybe if we could get Amy Klobuchar and Mayor Pete to endorse Netanyahu, would that help? Since you offer the segue, let's return to our shores and talk a little bit about Super Tuesday and advantage Biden clearly after last night. Your assessment of where the Democrat Party is headed.
Oh, where the Democrat Party is headed is to a November disaster, it seems to me. Because Bernie is completely unacceptable. And what I think was really positive about last night is the American people said, look, we've told pollsters, we've told people, we're not socialists. We don't like socialism here. And by the way, the message in Israel is the same thing. The traditional socialist party in Israel, the Labor Party, fell to they lost. They got half of the votes that polls predicted they would get. People have rejected socialism, and they're rejecting it around the world. And Bernie's out of touch. And the idea is that if Biden runs as socialism light, he's going to get creamed. And then they're also so basically it seems to me in this country that barring some kind of disaster, especially with the primaries next week, where they have primaries in Missouri, which will probably go for Biden, and Michigan, which is who knows, because Bernie's counting on a lot of Arab Americans in Michigan to give him a victory.
Sure. Rashida Tlaib helping out, perhaps.
Yeah, but I think Donald J. Trump is the big winner last night because what it indicates is that they're going to keep fighting this out, and I can't imagine that all the Bernie bros who have invested so much in their socialist dream are going to go quietly if Joe Biden wins at the convention. Last time, according to exit polls, last time in 2016, 12% of people who voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary voted for Donald Trump in the general election. I think he could do better than that among Bernie bros this time.
And what about Mike Bloomberg? Do you think he'll call it quits now? Did he run out of cash to self-finance this campaign?
The
or is
word
he ego too big?
As of this morning, that he's just committed another $7 million to buy advertising in Michigan, which is next week. Right. You know, I'm really not sure what the game is that Mike Bloomberg is playing, because he's not a dumb guy.
No, he's not.
But this is incredible. And again, I think the real casualty of this race was Elizabeth Warren. She finished third in her home state.
Wow.
She finished third. I mean, the fact that Joe Biden carried Massachusetts, that was one that nobody predicted. And he carried Massachusetts decisively.
Well, and going back to Bloomberg, too, I don't really understand it either, because unless he jumpstarts his campaign with what he's been doing thus far that hasn't worked outside of American Samoa, then what is the argument for piling up a small fraction of delegates with second and third place finishes around the rest of the states? You go to the convention and you say, I'm the consensus candidate, give me your delegates, or I'm the consensus candidate to the super delegates. I mean, how persuasive is that?
It isn't. And look, Bloomberg if Bloomberg had given really stellar debate performances, I don't think his debate performances were as disastrous as people say, but they weren't very good. And the point is, this is just a proof that money can't buy elections. Biden literally won a bunch of states that he never visited and where he didn't spend a dime, nothing. He had no employees, he had no offices, nothing. And he won those states. I mean, the fact that he won in Maine, apparently, it's still very close, but that he won in Massachusetts and in Minnesota, for goodness sake. No one expected Biden would win in Minnesota. And he won in Minnesota pretty big. Now, that's partially the influence of Amy Klobuchar. But I think that what's happening for Democrats is that they're looking at Joe Biden as the least scary. He's dotty and he's lost a few steps, but at least he's familiar and he isn't terrifying. And Democrats are terrified of President Trump. They're increasingly terrified of Bernie Sanders, who is indeed terrifying. Do you know, Bernie Sanders would be the same age when he took office that Reagan was when he left office after 8 years.
Yeah, and Joe Biden's a year younger.
Yeah. But so much more spry.
The youngest person in the race is 70.
Just sticking on this for a second, do you agree that sort of Joe Biden is you were describing as the safe play? It's very reminiscent to me, although you didn't have 30 years of inertia behind him at the national level. But it's reminiscent of Mitt Romney in 2012, the safe play after all the other candidates had been measured and found wanting.
Yeah, there is that aspect, but the thing about Mitt Romney was that nobody questioned his suitability for the office. I mean, you may not have liked him, but Mitt Romney's monumentally bright, and even today, and Mitt Romney is, I think, the exact same age as President Trump. Neither one of those look different than they did a while ago. I think that Vice President Biden, when you listen to him, you kind of almost root for him to complete his sentence. And when that becomes a challenge, it's really hard to envision what the debates would look like between President Trump and Joe Biden.
I'd be like watching a horror film through my hands, wanting it to stop.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw Invisible Man, but
it's very good.
The invisible woman in this campaign was Tulsi Gabbard. She won a delegate last night.
She did?
I did not realize that. All right,
she did.
She's on the board.
Where?
In American Samoa.
Hey.
She was born in American Samoa, and she got a delegate there. So she's keeping up her campaign, which is really a campaign to get a slot on MSNBC.
Right.
Well, Chris Matthews is clearing out some space. Michael Medved, host of the Michael Medved Show, member of USA Today's Board of Contributors, author of God's Hand on America, Divine Providence in the Modern Era. Michael, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
You bet. Again, in Israel and in the United States, I think we stagger on a while longer with indecisiveness, alas.
Yes. Thank you, Michael.
You bet, Dan.
Hi, Michael. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Hello, I'm Dr. Willie Wilson, and it's time for reparations. Reparations for the black communities are bigger than a single check. Reparations are an opportunity to repair the results from the African enslavement, the redlining, the war on drugs, police terror, and continued discrimination. It is time for an investment as target as the policies that create our divide. I'm asking you to support the bill I sponsor. Please call your state legislator.
Paid for by drwillywilsonfoundation.org.
Hi, I'm Dr. Willie Wilson, and I've dedicated my life in the service of others. As Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, life's most pressing and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? By supporting the reparation bill, I am working for the